Hi, Jeff. I'm set up this meeting for myself just to do a quick recording. I know, so we're going to be meeting on Thursday, September 9th to discuss the scheduling process. And I wanted to just kind of give you a bit of a heads up on some of the things I've been working on, some of the things that I think are an opportunity, because I know that there are things that might seem a little bit radical where I'm coming from, but I really want to have this discussion because I'm really passionate about this topic, and I really think that there's a huge opportunity here. And I really, from our previous discussions, I recognize that you are also passionate and enthusiastic about opportunities. So I just wanted to give you a quick overview on some of the things I'm working on so that we can have this discussion during the meeting. So I'm sharing my screen here. Both, I'm going to talk a little bit from programming and dynamic scheduling in P6 and how we set things up more in a dynamic event methodology versus a philosophy of typical project management, which I think there's a huge opportunity there for you. The other thing is the actual, what I'm referring to here as the out of the playbook 3.3 scheduling process. So in this scheduling process, I'm touching on elements. So this is like an element 2 of our turnaround and an outage playbook. I'm going to discuss a little bit around things like the scheduler's responsibilities, the dynamic scheduling methodology, talk a little bit about the opportunities for formal, step-by-step process and training where we can incorporate quite a bit of what I've already developed in a training manual that we can customize for you or for Nova regarding taking one of your projects and putting it into the actual content of step-by-step how to set up the project, the different codes to use, how to create, how to do the programming, how to do proper dynamic scheduling, setting up WBS, and a lot to do with actual resource management. And one of the things that I want to emphasize with you here, again, the difference between a typical EPC project management PMI kind of concept that a lot of schedulers are used to. What we want to be able to do is talk more about the fact that we don't schedule resources in these events. We don't treat them like projects. That's why we call them events. So we schedule work, and we expect that the resources will be coordinated to support the work, how we schedule that work. So again, resources are things like the people, direct, indirect, the equipment, mobile equipment and cranes, rental equipment, and safety, for example, information, tools, materials. There's all these indirect and direct resources and information that support how we schedule that work. So I want to really focus on that for you. And I want to talk a lot about the actual basis of planning that feeds into this, because we're dependent on that. And the fact that we want to estimate based on direct tool time only and use scheduling to do the productivity calculation. So we apply productivity factor during scheduling and run what if scenarios to determine what it's really going to look like in terms of a project plan or a schedule based on productivity. And I mention it because when we plan the work, we actually don't know who's going to execute the work or the level of competence with the people or the contractor. We don't know the time of year, maybe the weather. We don't know complexity and densities. There's so many things we don't know that it's better to plan direct tool time only and make up for non-productive time through a productivity factor calculation when we're scheduling. So again, I'm touching on a lot of things. I want to review the scheduling process with you tomorrow at a high level, and this draft is almost ready to get you and some of the others involved in reviewing. But for now, I just want to demonstrate quickly something that I think you might find interesting that we've discussed prior to this. But again, going back to the idea that we are scheduling work, not resources. So what we're trying to do is explain to the computer that we have resources here that I refer to in terms of priorities. So my priorities are simply based on these idea of my P1s, P2, 3, and 4, even though in the computer, in P6, they're all set up as labor because I don't use the non-labor portion of P6. Again, P6 was not designed for events. It was designed for EPC projects and building bridges and gas plants and long commodity-driven projects, whereas we are limited with the number of people we can squish into a facility. We're limited with time, and yet we have all this work to do, and we need to decide the best utilization method of the key resources. So here we have P1s that I call the movie stars. These are the people I need to keep busy because they're expensive and they make me the most money in terms of the most critical type of work, and they own the jobs. They own the packages. For example, pipe fitters, welders, electricians, instrumentation, boilermakers, for example, they own the job. So those are the P1s, movie stars. Behind them are the direct support, what I call the cast. These are the laborers, the riggers, the scaffolders, those people who are actually directly working, but indirectly supporting the movie stars. Behind that, now I have my indirect support, which I call the film crew, which is my supervision, administration, safety people, for example. And then lastly, I have things like indirect overhead, which I call producers, which in many cases I classify my inspectors that are available 24/7, and they support the actual work. Again, scheduling the work, not the people. But I want to make it clear here that we don't build a mobilization plan in advance for these workers or for these resources. We let the computer tell us what we need to mobilize in order to get the work done based on how we scheduled that work, based on priority and availability. Okay, so that's one thing I'm going to point out. The other one is on the productivity factor that we apply. I have the option to apply various productivity factors to these resources and look at, when I'm running what if scenarios, what's actually happening to my plan or my schedule when I change that productivity factor. So I can run through all these different scenarios, anything from changing productivity from the opening phase and making it better in the closing phase, or based on different work types like asbestos removal versus blinding, for example. So I have all these various ways that I can run scenarios using the capability of the program to do most of my scheduling for me, and understanding that I've or basically put together the programming aspect of coding and configuring my project or my event prior to allowing the scheduling software to produce the most optimized plan. So these are the things I really want to be able to discuss with you. So I want to just give you a quick overview. Things such as a systemization plan, which I didn't see in your current schedules, where typically I would have my systemization by operations saying that in this event, my flare system operations will hand it over to me, lockout, tagout at on day 5, for example, or in this case, May 13th on year 22, and they want it back again on day 17. So they've given me a process availability window that says all the work on the flare system will start on day 5 or day 6, and it has to be finished by day 17 or day 11, for example. And so in doing this by systemization, it allows me to be able to hand over systems and take them back, but it also allows me to create these windows. So you'll see here, this curtain is demonstrating the flare system window. And this flare system window starts on day 8 and must be finished by day 20 in this example. So you'll see that any work associated with the flare system falls into this window automatically when I assign it to the flare system. Now all I need to do is look at how do I prioritize that work, and knowing that that work has already been planned, I should be able to determine when I level based on my priority that this work can get scheduled within this window with the available crews that I have working with this PF that I currently have assigned to them. 1.4 is basically saying on a 6x2x10 shift that they're going to be able to work approximately 65% of tool time, and the remainder of the time is non-productive time. What I'd like to show you here, though, is the way that works is the way that I believe it should be set up because this is not an EPC project. We don't use traditional methods. We don't use task dependent in these particular situations. On manually cleaning or cooling down or venting a drum, I might use task dependent. I might use fixed duration in units and duration percent complete on a 24/7 calendar. However, in the particular case of blinding, for example, I am limited. Every event is limited in terms of the number of people I can put on a job or in an area because of density. So I am always restricted in terms of resources. So I need to use this resource dependent method, and I need to use fixed duration and units per time because this is the duration of the tool time estimate and the crew. So units per time is the crew, which will calculate my man hours. Okay. Some of your settings I saw were here with duration and units. Units is man hours. And what we want to be able to do is let the system create or calculate the duration and the crew size to give us what the calculated man hours is. So in this case, I have a laborer and a pipe fitter with a duration. Now, this is my estimated tool time duration for this job of installing equipment blinds is 8 hours with a crew of 2. 8 hours for pipe fitters, crew of 2. Pipe fitter is a P1, owns this job, okay? And the man hours calculate automatically. At this point, I'm looking at my budgeted costs again. Using direct man hours allows me so much flexibility in determining what I really need for resources, direct wrench pullers, and to be able to create and calculate my indirect cost and my overhead. So it gives me a very good definition and target of what I really truly need to do this work. But you'll notice here that when I schedule this work, I have, and when I put my resources on a typical productivity factor of basically we're saying 24/7, they're available 24 hours a day. And this is the challenge that most people have, and they don't realize that they think that people are available to work direct pull tool time or turn valves or turn wrenches 24 hours a day or 100% of the time on the shift, which we know is not true. But let's say, for example, that we have allowed that to happen. You can see clearly here that we can get this work done quite easily with this crew size that we have available to us. Okay, so we have available crew of 2 pipe fitters and 2 laborers. We can easily get this work done in this time frame with plenty of flow. But we know that that's not realistic. And let's just go back here for one moment to take a look at. We've got 8 hours here in terms of duration. So this is the true duration. Up here, you'll see that we have chronological time. This is the activity duration that people get confused with and try to put the duration here. The duration does not belong here. This is a calculated outcome of how I do this work. Now, when I schedule them for the time productivity factor that I have applied, you'll see that when I have my duration here under the resource and my crew and my calculated man hours, you'll see the same duration applies here. I have 32 hours here, I have 24 here. So these are equal, 6 hours here. Equal activity duration, equal resource duration. The difference is this is assuming 24-hour availability. Now, what happens when I change my productivity factor or apply a productivity factor here? We're going to apply 1.4, 6 days a week, still 2 shifts. We're going to put these people on that. As soon as I do this productivity factor and go back and look at where I am here, you'll see that things will begin to change in terms of timing availability. So I'm leveling. It's going to level based on the jobs. Dynamic scheduling work order priority is going to do this one first, second, third, and then finally the 5th one. It's going to schedule them. It's going to demonstrate here that the availability of the resources is going to be based on my 16-hour availability. So that's the 1.4 out of the 24-hour day period. It's going to show me that I can still get this work done with these available crews size, but it's going to take a bit longer, and I've got quite a bit less flow because what's happening here is it's saying that this 24-hour duration now is up to a 70-hour duration. This 12-hour duration in chronological time is going to take me 23 hours. This job that I planned for 32 hours is now going to take me 78 hours. So what I'm doing is I have the ability to go through here and change productivity factor. If I change productivity factor to a 2 on this resource pipe fitter, it's going to come through and start obviously change the way things look. And it's going to start to be over allocated. So I'm going to want to go through, I'm going to want to level on that part, because I always level on my movie stars. Those are my key people, my P1. So I only level on them, leveling by the priority. What it's going to do is it's going to try to get this work done. But what's going to happen is some of this work is not going to be able to get done in this window. What it's done is it's thrown this work outside of the window to the next available date that's available, which is, in my case, is the new year. So if I was to go back and say, well, what is it actually going to take me to do this work if I want to get it all done in this period of time? And so I would go through and start doing my what if scenarios and calculations to be able to determine how am I going to get all this work done with these resources in that short period of time. So what I'm forced to do here then is to go in and increase the number of people that I need available. So I'm going to increase my pipe fitters and my laborers up to 4 people available, and I'm going to just set my availability time of, because I'm looking at a productivity factor of 2, which is really pretty typical during the opening phase of an event. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to level, and it's going to come back and say, well, with 4 people, this is absolutely no problem to get the work done, even at a 2 productivity factor. Even knowing that here I have a 24-hour duration for this work, it's still going to take me 48 hours of chronological time to earn this, because we're working on this basis. And I'll bring up just a quick review here of the let me open up the cost management program or platform just to give you a bit of a heads up on that, because I want to actually have a quick discussion with you on that too. And we did that under a, I have an older working copy here, but on this cost management spreadsheet, the idea is that we want to be able to go and look at the opportunity here for CPI, SPI, bringing data in from P6 that says, in this particular instance, for example, here, sorry, I'm bouncing around here. Here we have what we originally planned on as 4,000 hours, but with a 0.9 productivity factor, which is actually pretty high. And we probably not going to attain that. But if we did, it says that the most that we can actually earn is 3,622 hours. If we only earned 1,100, which is percent complete, our scheduled performance index is 0.3, but we actually paid for 24/7 actual timesheet time. That's all in. That's the direct tool time, efficiency, plus all the indirect non-productive time. So we paid for a 10-hour shift, but they only turned wrenches for 3.5 or 4 hours. So we have a very poor efficiency. What we're looking for is to increase this. We want to make sure that these people are working on the priority jobs, that we have enough float, that we have enough people available, and we want to be able to run all these different what if scenarios and be able to let the computer tell us. So my triangle that I look for typically is the chronological time, okay, the duration of the event, the man hours that I'm going to have to earn, and the total budget. That's my triangle for the scope of work I've been given. And I want to optimize that. I want to do it, letting the computer help me to optimize by running these different scenarios. And I want to be able to code in a way that I know what my process availability is. I have my work orders. I know the parent equipment, equipment ID and description, work order. I know the type of contract, lump sum or time and material, fixed price, unit rate. I know my priorities, my leveling priorities based on, is it install, open, repair, clean, inspect. I know, again, process availability, the amount of float. I know my calculated chronological time is done by the system, not by me, because I'm down doing it here. I have a general account here where I've put in, and again, I'm tracking some of my budgeted costs here around supervision vision, overhead, and also some expenses around things like safety, trailers, transportation. I'm doing it here just as a demo so that we have something to measure by a cost versus the man hours versus the time, that my triangle. And I'm doing things like locking down my milestones, because you'll see here that I've created my curtains for, here's my shutdown phase, here's my basically my mechanical phase in the yellow, here's my startup phase, and here's my flare system in this window here. So this flare, you'll see there's no milestones, there's no relationships, everything is free to kind of move around based on availability. So now this work that I've identified as is also work that goes into that flare system. Once I've done this, it's going to automatically put it into the flare system, and it's going to allow me to level out that work based on the fact that it's in that system, and I can start to look at my profile and my histograms to say what is available. So here you'll see that I have laborers working. I have 4 of them. Here's the 4 available crew. Here you can see 4, but they don't work on Sunday. Now, if I was to go in and say, well, I want to level on all resources, which I would typically never do, but for a demo's sake, it's like, if I'm going to do this, based on the availability of the laborers who are P2s, which are like supporting casts, they are going to tie me down in terms of getting this work done. So now I got a bunch of movie stars sitting around waiting till the pipe fitters get stuff done. So I don't want to do that. What I want to do is go in and say, my movie stars are the most important. I'm going to level on my movie stars, and I'm going to find out how many laborers do I need to support those movie stars and keep them busy, because they're making me money. These guys are making me money. So what am I going to need for all the other reasons? Okay, so this is kind of a bit of a introduction that I was really hoping to have a discussion with you tomorrow, because I think this process next to the planning, basis of planning methodology and philosophy is incredibly important. And I want to start pulling you in and looking at all the things that you've created, and all the things that have been created within NOVA. There's a lot of supporting documentation, a lot of opportunities here, but this is something I really would like to zero down to the point where we can get that first draft out and we can start the training and mentoring program to get people to buy into options or opportunities for more of a dynamic scheduling methodology, again, versus what people tend to fall back to is that traditional project management PMI situation where schedulers are adding almost no value to the organization because they're following a traditional let's build an acid plant kind of plan, EPC commodity driven philosophy. And I want to kind of radically steer you past that. So, okay, so that's my long, blurb talking, yakking, and at this point, I'm gonna stop recording and try to wrap this up and send it off to you. And I'll include Andrew in on this too, and whoever. Feel free to share it with anyone, but please review this and before our meeting tomorrow. Okay, cheers, man.